to Exploring Santa Cruz, a bi-weekly program on KSQD. I'm your host, Matilda Rand, and today's topic is payday loans. My guests are Richard Cooper and Katie Fairbairn from the Santa Cruz Community Credit Union. Richard Cooper is the Executive Vice President, Chief Lending Officer at the Santa Cruz Community Credit Union. He has been in the credit union industry for 45 plus years. Katie Fairbairn, Vice President of Communications and Organizational Development. Welcome, Richard and Katie. Could you tell us a little bit more about your background that landed you in Santa Cruz and the credit union? Richard, why don't we start with you?
As mentioned, I think I was born on the little credit union on the prairie. Been involved since I was just 18 years old, from a credit union in Alaska. We were talking earlier, my mother was an elementary school teacher, and as a credit union member from a very young age, had gone in one day to make my car payment, and the manager said, "Richard, had you ever thought about coming to work for me?" And I was like, "Let's talk." Next thing I knew, I was working on the teller line, and that was 1975. So it's been a wonderful ride. Had a wonderful career in a variety of places. I was a CEO at a credit union up in Mendocino County from the early 2000s until I retired officially about 5 years ago, and then almost immediately came out of retirement and started helping smaller credit unions that were CDFI, community development oriented, as a consultant. Our CEO here at Santa Cruz Credit Union, she and I had worked together years ago in Ventura, and she called me one day and said she had a temporary opening, and that was 3 years ago. So that's how I got to Santa Cruz.
Very nice. Katie?
It's all Richard's fault that I'm here. I was working at Mendocino College. I had taken the executive director position of the foundation at the college in 2010. And when I came on board, Richard was a board member, the chair of the special events. And then he went on to become my president of my board. And so that began a friendship and an association and a joint passion to do good, to make good things happen for students at the college. And then, roll it forward 10 plus years. I retired from a 32-year career in community college and K-12 education. And Richard called and said, "Hey, we have a position in Santa Cruz. Come on down." So I've been here 14 months. And what I would say is what we do every day is a labor of love. You have to have a passion for helping people. And the mission of the credit union and being a CDFI aligns with who we are. So it's worked out perfectly.
Explain for the listeners, what is a CDFI?
It means that we have a designation to serve the underserved, those that are unbanked, those that don't always have access to financial services. And we have other designations as well. But I think what makes us a little bit different and a little bit more of a niche credit union, if I may say, is that every decision we make, we kind of put through that lens. How is this going to help people? How is this going to help them build wealth? How is this going to help them, buy a home, send their kids to college, and do everything that most people take for granted?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, it's hard not to notice the increasing prices in the stores.
Amen.
And it's a hardship for many, many community members. So it's a good thing we do this today. But even before the recent developments, many people experience a budget gap right before their paycheck.
Amen.
Yeah. Payday lenders, as they are called, filled that gap, but often with adverse impact on the borrower. Richard, how does that work? Why does it get worse for them?
The average payday lender does this for you. You go in and they give you an advance based upon a previous paycheck and give you a very short time to pay that advance back. And especially if you've had the loss of a check or a temporary disability or something like that, you're catching up on other expenses. You all of a sudden now owe $400, $500, maybe even $1,000, and it's due in a short period of time. When that comes due and you can't pay it, well, they're happy to roll it over again, but at the continued high interest rates. And especially if you roll it over more than once or twice, you're paying sometimes hundreds of % in interest. Painful.
That is painful. I just want to let it sink in.
Hundreds of %. In my past life, I can remember one of the worst stories I'd ever seen. A branch manager came in literally in tears to my office and said, "I have this gentleman in the office. He is 74 years old. he has had the same payday loan for 4.5 years. And this poor gentleman, I can't tell you how many hundreds of dollars he'd paid on a very small amount that he needed for something. And he had come in hearing that the credit union might be able to help him. And sure enough, we were able to get him out of that and get him started with a fresh start, so to speak. And later he came in tears and said thank you. It was definitely one of those rewarding moments that make the rest of the job all worthwhile.
Right. Could we maybe call payday lenders predatory lenders?
Sadly, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what's the credit gap, and why do we find this particularly among low-income people?
So most folks that have, say, moderate to average income start relatively early and at least have some knowledge that, that first credit card they get from a department store, or that first small credit card that they get thanks to, a mailer that they got in the mail or something, that gets them started. But if you're new to the country, if you're not here with a Social Security number, if you're starting off in a household or a home that's everyone's poor and haven't had access to, say, an auto loan, or your family's never owned their own home, that kind of thing, there's a definite lack of knowledge quite often about how to get this, how to make it work. The other side of it, though, is that when you're really low income, or especially if you're a cash wage earner, which a good portion of our county is, hardworking laborers, farm workers, a variety of folks that get, cash paychecks rather than a normal paycheck, they're living paycheck to paycheck. Mm-hmm. They don't have that proof of income that it takes to maybe qualify for that first loan. And that's something that we at Santa Cruz Credit Union, that's one of our stocks in trade. We'll give folks that first opportunity. We offer a secured credit card program where you can deposit a little bit of money, borrow against that. We also, though, do auto loans and things like that for folks with no initial credit. So if you've saved a little bit of money for a down payment and are buying a reasonable car, we'll take a chance on you, especially if you've got a solid income stream.
Right. I've been doing some research, and I understand it's so much easier if you don't have money, and it's right around the corner is the payday lender. And they're everywhere.
Yep.
Apparently in Watsonville, per traditional bank, there are 3.2 day pay lenders. In Santa Cruz, 1.5. So you see, where are they focusing themselves on?
Low income communities.
Exactly.
And Watsonville's probably pretty lucky to only have 3 or 4 per bank. There are some poorer communities in larger cities where you'll see one in almost every strip mall and no banks present.
That is amazing. Well, I also understand that there are more payday lender stores in the United States than there are McDonald's.
That's a painful, unhappy meal if I've ever heard of it.
Chew on that for a moment.
Yeah, goodness.
So how can people build credit?
Well, the obvious thing is people say, well, it's not so easy, but it is. Start with anything, a cell phone bill, paying rent, paying utilities on a regular basis. Making sure that you honor your financial obligations, whatever they may be, however small they may be, is a place to start. And a place like a community credit union like ours will actually take, as an example, will help you build a credit file with cell phone bills or your utilities, or show us your rent receipts or your canceled checks for your rent. We'll take that. We've done, in the last couple of years, at least probably one home loan a month, maybe more, where folks have come in and said, this is all I have, what can I do? And they've saved money. I'm always amazed at cash earning, relatively low income families that'll come in and say, we've got $70,000 saved, we've got all this money. And it's because there's been a focus. There's a definite goal in mind. But the easiest and most simple example is just, like I said, pay your obligations no matter how small. Start building that confidence that somebody else has, that you have the ability to, honor your obligations.
Yeah. In a study that UCSC did in June of 2018 called Mamas con Mas, they interviewed people. And what they found out was that low-income people are budgeting. It's
almost
not
definitely
that
have to.
They have to. They know what is needed, but they don't have the information that you just gave us, that the credit union, your credit union, probably other credit unions as well.
Almost definitely, there's others, yes.
They will help people along the way and help them build the trust Because one of the things in my own experience, if somebody asks me $20 and they said, I'll give it back to you next week,
Mm-hmm.
and they do, then the next time they ask me again for $20, I'll give it to them because there is a trust. And I assume that's the same thing with banks. If you pay it back, they'll give you another loan. If you don't, you're sunk. So that's one of the things that people need to know. Talking about credit, because we all go and get our credit score. I understand when people go to payday lenders, they don't necessarily build up their credit.
They don't report those loans generally. I
Right.
think I hate to make broad generalizations because there are payday lenders that don't have the real super owner's fees. They do have a honest and forthright business focus.
Sure.
But there are many of them that do not report the good payments. And that keeps those folks in that cycle because then they don't build the credit that they need to be able to get a regular loan. The programs that we offer at the credit union, for better, for worse, and I say for better because if you've paid your obligations, you get credit for it. The worst side is that if you haven't paid your obligations, you get credit for that too. That's something that a lot of folks, going, oh, I didn't know this was going to be a problem. And it's like, yeah, it's going to be. But yes, it's definitely one of the benefits of going to a traditional lender as opposed to a payday lender. They report to the reporting services, which then help you build that score, which helps you, build credit and get other things later.
Right. I need to do a station identification. You are listening to KSQD Santa Cruz, KSQD, and online ksqd.org. You're listening to Exploring Santa Cruz. My name is Matilda Rand, your host, and I'm here with Richard Cooper and Katie Fairbairn, and the topic is payday loans and alternatives to that. Is that why you created the Lift loan?
Exactly. Our CEO had a long passion to try to come up with something that fit the regulatory environment that we work in because we are highly regulated. We're a state-chartered financial institution that's also insured by the federal government. So we have the joy of having 2 layers of federal and state regulation. So there's a lot of things that we can and can't do. But we came up with a program that passed the regulatory requirements.
Mm-hmm.
And we were very fortunate to get our Community Development Financial Institution, CDFI grant that went along with the program. And out of that, then the LIFT program came around, has a relatively low fee and or a short-term interest rate that goes along with it. The best part of it is that it allows you to build credit when you pay that back because we do report to the credit reporting agencies.
Right. And so how does the Lift program work?
You have a member or, someone from the community that has a financial need. It's up to $2,500 is available through the program. It can be a short-term 90-day, could be up to 2 years, 24-month repayment if it's a larger amount. So that reasonable payments, because again, that helps people keep out of that trap of getting into an obligation they can't afford to pay back in the appropriate manner. It's a simple 5 or 6 line application. It happens at the branch, and usually you can leave with that money that same
day?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Katie, anything to add?
I would just say that one of our employees, Natalie, at the SoCal branch, did share a story that she was working with someone 2 months ago who was really struggling because she needed tires for her car to take her to work. And so she talked about the Lift loan, and she did a $500 Lift loan for tires, $35 fee, and she has 3 months to pay it back. And that'll keep her going to work every day. So
And she needs the car to go to work.
she needs the car to go to work.
And that's what we try to focus on. If someone comes in and says, well, I just want to borrow money, I say, well, what's the thought behind it? What's the need? And one of the things is, again, we don't want anyone to take on debt that they don't need or that they can't afford to pay back. And sometimes that's one of the hard parts about being a loan officer in a caring financial institution is that that's part of the counseling process. So what's the purpose? Well, and it's like, I have a funny story, especially in today's market where this isn't illegal anymore, but working in Alaska, we shared a branch with the Railroad Credit Union, and a young man came in and said he wanted a $500 loan. And I said, well, I need to have a purpose for it, because this is back in the days when the credit committee actually looked at it. He said, well, vacation? And I said, doesn't sound like that's really what it is. He said, so I want to buy weed. And I said, so you want a canoe? That's the kind of thing that with him. I said, that really isn't probably something you want to borrow money for. And at an early age, I had to learn those kind of conversations were really important to have with members. Obviously, these days, we can go to any number of local retailers and that's not a problem. But back in Alaska in 1977 or so, that was. The important point is that having a good purpose is really good. Tires, medical bills. I made a mistake in my checkbook and I need to buy food to get us through till next payday. That's a really important one. Yeah.
Especially now with all the
Exactly.
prices increasing. So how do you help people build wealth?
Well, I know our CEO has a real hard time with that word. What I like to say is that we want to build financial security.
There you go.
If wealth comes from that, bless you. But our first and highest priority also always is building financial security, whether you're a minimum wage entry-level worker or you're the president and CEO of a local company. First thing is, what can we do to get you housing, automobile, a budget that works for your everyday, and then, let's talk about savings. Let's talk about what we can do to build that more of that financial security.
Right, and I feel wealthy because I have my health and I have that financial security, my retirement. I worked for it, but I have my retirement.
Exactly.
So I feel wealthy. I mean, that's just the feel, there's more of a feeling. I think you don't need 3 houses, 2 boats, or whatever.
Yeah.
I want to feel financially secure and feel belonging in a community where I can stay because I can pay my rent,
Right.
and I can pay for my food and my medical bills. In that sense, I feel wealthy. I mean, it's maybe a different idea of wealth.
I was having a conversation with some old friends, and we were talking about the old days of, when we first knew each other in our 20s, and gathering enough money for breakfast was a problem if we wanted to go out on a Saturday. And I said, to me, that's the difference between those days and at my point in life now. I can go to the grocery store and buy what I want to buy. That's wealth.
Yeah.
I don't have to worry about, I try to make sure I buy things on sale. But so many people, if you've ever watched closely, there's the folks that are writing everything down. They're keeping a little tab.
Mm-hmm.
They're counting things as it goes over the belt at the grocery store. If you've seen moms that have had to put back some things because it didn't work, all I've got is $75 and it was $82.
It didn't fit in the budget.
It didn't fit in the budget. There's a definition of wealth for me.
Yeah.
That you can be able to make decisions based upon what you really need, that you're not worried about those basics.
Learning that.
It's a process.
Yeah, it's a process. And so we need the tools. And I understand you do financial literacy training.
That's our friend Katie here.
Yeah, we do. So we offer quite an array of free financial literacy. There are balance webinars on the website, 2 a month. We do in-person literacy trainings for a lot of our nonprofit partners. CAB, Davenport Center, Pajaro Valley Homeless Shelter, the Homeless Garden Project. So pretty much any nonprofit can contact us and we will do a literacy training for them. They range from elder abuse training to how to not have your identity stolen, to banking basics, building a budget. There is a component of the LIFT loan if you want a discount on your LIFT loan. If you do our budget building webinar through Balance and build a budget, that you can get a discount. We're trying to help empower people with that knowledge and information. It's similar to what you're doing as a volunteer. If you can sit down with somebody and talk with somebody and go through the mechanics of what they need to do, most of the time people are so receptive and happy to have that help. And it does change their lives. It changes the outcome of their future.
Right. And
Yeah.
of course, you're referring to our conversation we had about doing taxes for people. And that's exactly what's happening.
Yeah.
The little time we have, half hour, an hour, we do help them seeing their picture. And one of the things that I've been telling people is that if you wait to the end of the year to pay a big chunk to the IRS, that's not going to make you feel good. If you do it through payments, which the IRS, of course, wants, and otherwise they give you a penalty at some point. And then I have the opposite of people that actually pay more per month in taxes because comes around April, they get a big chunk of money. It is kind of their savings plan.
Yeah.
Now, I think they feel happy about that. And so the conversation with people, and I see same thing with you, Richard, in your conversation with asking people, what is the loan for? you help them get self-confidence. This is what I need. This is what I want. Now let's see how we can do it. You come more on an even level.
Yes.
Not that I need money and then you're going to put me down.
Well, and I think one of the things is we do see a lot of folks that come into the office and they maybe want to buy a home, they want to get a new car, and we'll take a look at the credit file and go, gosh, there's been some hiccups in the past. Let's see what we can do to work through those. I'm looking at your budget right now and your debt ratio is really high. Taking on more debt right now probably isn't what you need. But what can we do to maybe do a consolidation loan, or could we put you through one of the budgeting classes? Our home loan lady, she's amazing. And Brenda does that with pretty much everybody that walks in the door. And she'll say, credit score is maybe not there, budget's a little off, but let's see what we can do to get you there. And that's where the real, meat in the job is, because when you can help somebody reach one of those life goals, finally getting that first new car, finally owning a home. We were talking earlier about a wonderful young woman in her 70s who had never owned a home before. And she was getting ready to retire. She was still working full time. And we were able to get her qualified for a really lovely mobile home in a nice park in Salinas. She was just amazed. We worked through the down payment process. We helped her through the purchase process. And the day she closed, she came in crying. She was just so excited that, finally, after all these years, she was going to have her own home.
That's fantastic, yeah. I hear you say there's nothing more key to our mission than providing people with access to the financial services they need to be successful, ultimately to build wealth or feel wealthy. Anything, Katie, that we didn't ask that you would like to share?
No, I think one of the reasons why working for this credit union resonates with me so much is because the personal care that everyone gives to the members. We're not a big bank. I was just in Los Angeles and I was looking out the windows of my hotel and there were the big names that are so recognizable. And I thought, God, I'm so glad we're a little guy in the little pond, because what we do is so much more meaningful and impactful.
Richard, anything I didn't ask that you would like to share?
I think one of the things that a lot of community credit unions do that I'm really proud of is that we offer services to the unbanked that might be turned away by larger banks, and in particular the ITIN borrower or the folks that have the tax ID number as opposed to a Social Security card. We're happy to open accounts for them. We're happy to make loans to them. Us, BayFed, two of the only local places that will do that. Yeah. I think the important thing is that anytime you make a financial decision, shop. I'll get all the information, find out what all the fees are, and think about how that's going to affect your finances in the future.
Good. Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Katie, for being here. If they want to reach the Santa Cruz Community Credit Union, you can go to scccu.org. You can also call the bank, the credit union, at 831-425-7708. Again, thank you so much. And
Thank you so much for having us. We really appreciate it.